Fanta, on Monday, when we scheduled this podcast on a Thursday morning, the very first response you had was, make sure we can talk about Michigan State and Maryland. You said this on Monday. Michigan State and Maryland had one of the craziest endings that we've had in college basketball this season. Trey Holloman hits a 60-foot bomb to win the game at the buzzer in College Park and silence Scott Van Pelt and 16,000 other crazy Terrapin alums. How did you know that?
Hey, by the way, that's a lot of fun to do that.
Yes.
That's a lot of fun to do that. I've done it. It's awesome. It's so much fun.
Is it better? All right, Finn, you can go in a second, but is it better to make a shot that shuts everybody in the building up, or is it better to hit that shot where when it goes in front of your fans, it explodes and it's so loud you can't hear anything?
They're both equally awesome, but shutting up Maryland to go to the tournament was incredible. And getting Van Pelt to come take a picture with me on the floor after the game, not knowing he was a Maryland fanatic at the time, even better. Chef's kiss. I still haven't gotten a hold of that freaking picture. And I love Scott Van Pelt. Huge fan. Been a fan since I was like 10. He's awesome. Never got the picture.
That's awesome.
So this is why this podcast is so fun, because we can just stem on. So first things first, I love that Scott Van Pelt is courtside at Maryland games, because as the guy who hosts what I think is the best sports news show on the planet in his edition of Sports Center, and perhaps the best show on ESPN. I mean, I think it's incredible how good he is. And Scott, you're a role model. Really,
he is.
How you do your job. I think it's great because we're all fans, and he should be allowed to be a fan of his alma mater, just like T.O. should be, just like you should be, Rob, just like I am. You know, we have a job to do, so when we're objectively talking about them, but you're allowed to go to the game as a fan. And it feels like in our world, everyone's like critical of certain things. I love that this is celebrated. It's great. What Trey Holloman did last night in Tom Izzo's 30th season has to make you think, is this destiny? Is it destiny that Michigan State is going to just be sitting in San Antonio? I don't know what happens from there because of Auburn and Duke, but they have to be one of the 10 to 12 teams, if you're going to break it down right now, that can make it there. Have to. Because they're 23-5. They're at the top of the Big Ten. Terrence Oglesby deserves all the flowers. He called this. He was right. And you know what, T.O.? The reason why I this is a great breaking off point with this team that we can talk about. The reason why I was doubtful was because I was unsure of how they were going to effectively score it.
Mm-hmm.
But what this team does is they compensate in every way to make up for sometimes a lack of offense and a lack of shooting. And what's ironic is that there's another veteran coach doing a very similar thing in New York City. Here you have in this culture of, is this guy retiring? Is this guy retiring? This guy retired. He said goodbye. So long. I don't want to deal with the sport anymore. Here you have Izzo, Pitino doing their things. But Izzo this is a top 5 coaching job by him ever. And it's coming in his 30th season. This team has, if you look at their talent, what he's done with this team is unbelievable.
T.O., are you allowed to say nice things about the Big Ten?
I've said nice things about the Big Ten this year. The Big Ten this year is a lot of fun. Oh, they're not all trying to adapt to Zach Edey anymore. The conference changer, that was Zach Edey. Everybody was trying to play a certain way because he was there. No longer the case. They're fun. They're fast. They defend. They're freaking tough. That's for sure. And then, there's arguments to be made about continuity in today's game. I'm telling you, it's do you have the right amount of continuity? And even St. John's, R.J. Lewis, they have guys that are returning there at St. John's. Ejiofor was there last year. You have to have that nice blend of just enough returnees. Or in a new day when a coach changes, can he bring 2 or 3 guys with him to kind of simplify the process for some of the new guys? Guys knows what to expect with these things. So I think that's a huge portion of it. I'm telling you, Michigan State, those dudes are tough. They still can't throw it in the ocean, but they find ways to win. They hit 4 threes, and one of them was beyond half court.
Yeah.
They almost shoot it better from there than they do. Like, just start hurling them from half and then just go get them.
Look, hey, they probably couldn't shoot it any worse from back there. I'll say this about Michigan State. The thing that I think is so impressive is they went through that blip, right? You lose 2 on the road on the West Coast, which is something that could happen. And then you kind of shit the bed a little bit against Indiana and at home in a game that you probably shouldn't be losing. And there a lot of people had questions about them. I had questions about them. They've lost 3 out of 4. They're no longer in first place in the Big Ten. And the next 4 games that they have after the loss to Indiana, at Illinois, Purdue at home, at Michigan, at Maryland. I don't know if you could find a tougher 4 game. And they, by the way, they had they have Wisconsin on Sunday. I don't know if you could find a more difficult 5-game stretch in the Big Ten anywhere for any team. And they've won 4 in a row, 3 of them on the road. Against the top half of the conference with Wisconsin coming up. It's so impressive. I love more than anything. I love the story of Jace Richardson and kind of his emergence. You know, we talked with Izzo last night about this, and you know, it would be very easy for a freshman to see like what Kasparis Yakashonis is doing, or what Cooper Flagg is doing, and the minutes that Conky Nipple is playing, and you know the success that Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey are having, and get frustrated that I'm doing air quotes here, only playing like 20 minutes a game, 18, 20 minutes a game. And that didn't really happen with Jace. And he kept, you know, he kept a positive attitude. He kept showing up for practice. He kept showing up for games. He kept playing the right way. And now he's getting his time to shine. He had 15 last night. He's had a couple of really, really impressive games in a row here. And I think that his presence, Phantom, more than anything else, is what makes he's the game changer, right? He is the guy where
he gives them some offensive pop.
Yes. Yeah, where you can see like them, you can see like their issue is being able to consistently put up points without having to rely on offensive rebounds and getting stuff in transition. And he is the guy where you could just give it to him and get the hell out of the way, and you're probably going to get a pretty good look.
Well, they need it. They need it. And just imagine if Jaden Akins and Jeremy Fears can shoot the basketball a little bit better. Like they're winning these games on a night where Akins and Fears are shooting a combined 4 for 16. And Trey Holloman was 3 for 12. Like if I had told you coming into the game that Holloman, Fears, and Akins would shoot 7 for 28, you probably would have said back to me, how much did Maryland win by? Doesn't matter, because Michigan State just takes away so much defensively. They guard you. If you watched that game last night, that was my takeaway. They were extended out on Jacoby Gillespie, T.O. They were extended out on Miguel and Rice. Derek Queen's a bit of a unicorn type talent with how he plays the game. Like he's so different in how he stylistically plays it in a really good way. And I thought Michigan State met him with physicality. They did as good of a job as they could have, and they limited him. I mean, you haven't seen many teams hold Derek Queen to 2 of 11 and Gillespie 2 of 10. That's a really good Maryland offense, and Michigan State said, we're not going to let you hit threes. 4 of 20 from 3. If you take away Maryland's threes, they're just not the same team. And Michigan State, conversely, shot 4 for 15 from 3. Here's the biggest thing that stands out to me that's so old school and different. It's been a long time since I've seen a team this time of year, like February 27th, T.O., play 10 guys and have 10 different dudes score. One is in double figures, and like after him, nobody else until the Holloman game-winning 3. Nobody else has more than like 5 to 7 points. That to me is the unique thing. It's like they don't really know where their scoring is going to come from. They do now with Richardson. He's become their alpha. He has turned into that. So that emergence is really interesting. But I just think it's the epitome of an Izzo team. Defense, rebounding. They're good at getting runouts. And I'll tell you what, they did as nice of a job as we've seen against Queen and Gillespie. And that is a moment, T.O. What could that do for their confidence with the calendar turning to March when you can win a game that way?
When in the 50s, man, go ahead and suit up. That's Michigan State's wheelhouse. That is their wheelhouse. You play in the 50s and they don't have to worry about scoring all that much. Michigan State's wheelhouse. I do want to reference back to what Rob said about Jace Richardson. You guys, we talked about Bob. We talked with Bob Ritchie several times, who lives right down the road from me here in Greenville. And like, by the way, Furman 22-8, they're pretty good again. They're pretty good again. In the Southern Conference is really good again. 10-7 in league, 22-8 on the season. I digress. I talked to him about, what is it about some of these guys? He goes, well, if their parents played, they're much more willing to fall into the process.